Hi, I'm Jack Draper. Shout out to QualityShot Tennis.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's another preview and prediction video, and we're going to be going over Iga Swiatek versus Emma Raducanu in the fourth round of Indian Wells. I cannot wait to get into this. It's going to be an extremely, well, let's say extremely anticipated matchup anyway. Whether we're going to get a highly competitive one is another story. We're going to break it down. Before we do, though, remember to that like button. Do subscribe if you are new, and also do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Also, thank you to all our members. It really is greatly appreciated. Any contribution towards our channel through YouTube or podcast platforms as well. It all goes back into the channel, and of course, make sure that you guys can get as much content as possible. And as much quality content as possible. Okay, let's break this down. So what we're going to do first is we're going to talk about how both players have been playing currently. So mainly at Indian Wells, I'm going to talk a little bit about their previous matches as well. Then I'm going to talk about their head-to-head. They've only played each other twice, once really, on the WTA tour. And then I'm going to talk about stylistically how they match up against each other, catering in the previous match and also their current form, and what we can potentially look out for, what tactics both players might employ and what they should employ potentially as well, and ultimately give you guys my predictions. So let's get into it. So Swiatek and Raducanu, both players, are very popular figures on tour, of course. Swiatek just beat Andreescu last night. I covered that match. Thank you to everyone that did join the commentary for it. It was a very exciting match. She won in straight sets in the end, 6-3, 7-6, although Andreescu was 4-2 and 40-15 up on her serve in the second set. Probably should have taken the second set. The first set as well probably should have been a tiebreaker at least. It was very, very tight, and that's probably highlighted by the fact that Swiatek saved 4 out of 8 break points, Andreescu 3 out of 8. So both players had 8 opportunities apiece, and it wasn't plain sailing whatsoever. And I think Andreescu maybe has given someone like Raducanu a little bit of a blueprint, and they're similar-ish types of players. So we'll talk about that a bit later. But Swiatek wasn't quite at her incredible best. She was making more errors than I think we're maybe used to seeing. Missed quite a few overheads and quite a few errors on the ground strokes as well. That is something to keep an eye on, I think, against Raducanu. Now, the question is going to be, is she going to play like that 2 days in a row, 2 matches in a row? Now, the answer and more probable outcome is going to be no, because it's very unlike the great players that they tend to have 2-3 terrible matches in a row. Well, not terrible, I think that's a bit harsh, but 2 or 3 matches where they're not playing their best level in a row. And I think Swiatek, looked a little bit off. I do think Andreescu, the way that she was defending, making Swiatek play that extra ball, extra 2 balls, extra 3 balls at times, did frustrate her. She was missing. She was still being aggressive as she's tried to be throughout the last year and a half. But ultimately, the errors were leaking a lot more than probably expected. Raducanu. Now, Raducanu against Haddad Maia. A good match and some big hitting as well from both players here. It was a tight match, a very tight match, and she ended up winning 6-1, 2-6, 6-4. Now, Raducanu seems to like these courts and also seems to like the balls as well. Now, she's timing the ball extremely well from what I've seen, and that's a real positive for her. I think the big question mark is going to be around how does she match up against Swiatek, and we'll get into that in more depth in a second. But let's just focus on her match against Haddad Maia and how she's played throughout this tournament. I think she's been good. I wouldn't say she's been excellent, but I think she's been good. And there's been some very positive signs, I think, especially on the ground strokes, on the forehand and the backhand, and the way she's been striking the ball, which will give people confidence if they're rooting for her to go on and go deep in this tournament. So that's positive. Her first serve percentage was up as well at 66%, which is good. First serve points won 69%. Second serve points won 50%. So that's pretty solid. Saved 3 out of 5 break points. That's good as well. Haddad Maia saved 5 out of 8. So not too bad there. I think she had a couple of match points before she ended up converting, and that's fine. That can happen. But she closed it out in the end, which is the most important thing. Had the composure to do so as well. For Raducanu, I didn't really have huge expectations of her going into this tournament, in all honesty. I actually didn't think she'd even make it this far. So the fact that she has got to this stage, to me, is impressive. The question is, she's coming up against the world number one in Iga Swiatek. Is she the most informed player? Maybe. I think Krejcikova, maybe Sabalenka, Raducanu, those types of players as well are also very dangerous, and probably I think they've created like a four at the moment. I think the four most dangerous players on tour at the moment, I think, are those four, including Swiatek. Now, how do they match up then against each other? And actually, before we do that, let's quickly and very briefly, because I don't want to talk about too much, talk about their one head-to-head matchup, which was on the clay. Now, it was in Stuttgart, which was the indoor clay. I have to say, different conditions in the sense that obviously they were still conditions, but in terms of the pace of court, it actually played quite similar to Indian Wells. Of course, different surface. It's clay, this is hard court. But if we're talking about the speed of surface, this Indian Wells surface is very slow. Now, this clay court at Stuttgart, if I remember correctly, is a slightly quicker clay court. It probably is around the same speed, I would say. And now Raducanu actually played pretty well against Swiatek. She lost 6-4, 6-4, but she gave a good account of herself. Now, she will take some confidence from that match and take it into this one, I'm sure. Also, the fact that she's been playing as well as she has been will be a good confidence boost. And she'll also look at the Andreescu match against Swiatek and say, well, hold on. If Andreescu can cause her problems, why can't I? I'm also US Open champion like Andreescu. So, let's talk about how they match up then, and what we can potentially look out for and should be looking out for. Well, Iga Swiatek, as I said, hasn't necessarily been playing her best tennis. Now, let's talk about the serve-return dynamic first, because that's always what I like to start off with, because I think it's a very important dynamic in any match. Swiatek's first serve generally has been pretty good in the last year and a half. She's been hitting her spots, and I think she's been managing to get quite a few free points off that first serve as well. Against Andreescu, the accuracy wasn't quite there. Now, Andreescu is also a very good returner, but she probably didn't make as many first serves as she'd like. On top of, she made 68% in the end, but I think what probably would have been disappointing to her actually is not necessarily maybe the amount of first serves made, but the win percentage behind the first serve, because what she's really, I think, worked on and implemented really effectively into her game is a serve on forehand combo or serve +1, even on the backhand side. It's very effective normally. And she was only winning 62% of her first serve points, which isn't that high, 43% behind her second serve. Now, that to me tells me that, okay, yes, Andreescu probably was returning quite well, which she was, and she is a very good returner generally. But Swiatek also wasn't serving as well as she could in terms of hitting her spots, but more importantly, probably wasn't backing it up as well as she normally would. Now, that's because of a mixture of errors and also great defensive work from Andreescu. Now, Raducanu is going to have to take some inspiration from that. She's also a pretty natural returner as well, I would say. I think she is pretty good at being able to hit the ball early and then also try and put the opponent on the back foot. She tries to get at least to neutral in those return points as quickly as possible. And that's why she's always looking to break people. And I think that will put her in good stead against Swiatek. She'll be hoping that Swiatek's first serve percentage is lower than maybe that 68%, but also be hoping that she doesn't back it up as well as she has been in the past year and a half. And it's more looking like how she played against Andreescu. So there's a few options here. Now, I think with Swiatek, it's interesting because I don't think Raducanu necessarily has a weaker wing to attack on the return. I actually think her backhand return is pretty solid, and her forehand return is also not too bad. I think she's pretty equally good on both wings. So I think for Swiatek, the key is going to be mixing it up. These courts are slow. She'll probably utilize the kick serve at times, and also the slice serve out wide on the juice side, for example. It'll be interesting to see how Raducanu returns, how many returns she's able to make into play, and also how does she fare against the second serve of Swiatek? Because what Andreescu did really well against Swiatek was attack that second serve. and really put her under pressure. She rushed her in a lot of the points, and that's why she ended up not winning a huge amount of second serve points. I'd say for Raducanu, she needs to do something very, very similar. I think she needs to step on the back foot, or sorry, step on the front foot even, and try and be aggressive on the second serve return and make sure that she is trying to get on the front foot pretty much straight away. And rather than saying, okay, I'm happy to get to neutral, or I'm happy to stick in the rally and start it, no, say, I want to try and be the one dictating proceedings in those second serve return points. And I think she'll probably have the mentality that any second serve return point should be hers to win. I don't think that's wrong. The big, though, not sticking point, but the big thing to work out or look out for even is whether Raducanu is going to be able to take the ball early and at shoulder height. Because if Swiatek's hitting that kick serve on the second serve, which she will, we know that, is she going to be able to control that return? Because she likes taking the ball early inside the baseline, does Raducanu on the second serve return. So it'll be interesting to see how she fares. She should be okay, but she needs to also make sure she's controlled in that in those positions as well. So we'll see how she gets on there. But Swiatek's first serve, of course, we know how good it can be. The question is, does she hit her spots as she has been doing in the past, or does she serve like she did against Andreescu, where she's actually at times going into the body, which most of these girls are good enough to be able to get around and hit a backhand or forehand and get into the rally as well in those points and get to neutral pretty quickly. For Raducanu, she needs to serve really well, in my opinion. I think she needs to be serving at sub 65%, I think, first serves in. And not just first serves in, but her first serve points 1 percentage probably needs to be above 70% at least. She needs to back it up nicely now. Swiatek, like Raducanu, is a very good returner, and arguably Swiatek is the best returner on tour. Now, there's probably going to be some breaks of serve, I'd imagine, in this match. Now, what Raducanu needs to be really good at is making Swiatek second guess at times when it comes to return positions and return patterns. She can't just be one-dimensional and say, I'm going to go into the forehand or go into the backhand consistently. She should have a game plan, yes, but she also needs to mix it up a little bit as well. It will be a balancing act because I think, one thing that she does utilize quite well is the slice serve out wide on the juice side. She also hits a good kick serve as well on the ad side. She was going down the tee quite nicely from the ad side against Haddad Maia because she's trying to access the backhand. Swiatek, similar to, I would say, Raducanu, doesn't particularly have a weaker wing when it comes to returns. Anyway, that's my opinion on it. I actually think her backhand might be more consistent in terms of returns. I think a forehand can hurt you more, but the backhand's probably more consistent return-wise. So for Raducanu, I think she needs to make a high percentage of first serves. It's a big thing for me. And also she needs to back it up nicely. So that means being proactive on the first strike on the 1+ play. I think a lot of that comes down to how Swiatek returns, of course, as well. Like if she returns right at the feet of Raducanu, it's very tough. She's gonna have to dig it out and she won't be able to get on the front foot. But she needs to be pretty proactive and know where she's going to go with the 1+ shot, trying to hit spots, hit targets as well on that 1+ shot as well. She can't be going down the middle of the court. I think she needs to be pretty much on the front foot straight away in those points, because if she's not, I think Swiatek will then step in, and that's when then you're in trouble. Because defensively, I think Raducanu is not bad, but I would say Andreescu is better defensively than Raducanu, in my opinion. But offensively, I'll say Raducanu is actually probably better. I think she's got better offense or attacking ability, in my opinion. That's kind of how I see it. Now, that's the serve return dynamics, and it'll be interesting to see how Raducanu does approach it, and is she going to try and flatten out the serve down the tee, for example, and rush Swiatek? Is she going to try and get on the stretch, which I imagine she will? I don't think we're going to see many body serves at all. And on second serve, this is where she could come up against some issues and roadblocks is that Swiatek's going to attack a second serve. And, I was talking about how Swiatek's second serve can be attacked. Raducanu's second serve can definitely be attacked. It's not a particularly good second serve. It's something that she probably needs to work on. But what was it? I mean, second serve points one was 50% to be fair to her against Haddad Mayer, but against Swiatek it won't be that. I'd be very surprised if it is, in all honesty. So let's talk about then the ground stroke mechanics and how those rallies might play, or the rallies might play out. I think if I was Raducanu, I would do what she's been doing and also then look at Andreescu as well and say, well, yeah, I should be doing that. And when I'm talking about doing that, I'm talking about transitioning to the net. Andreescu did it really well against Swiatek. Raducanu also did it well against Haddad Mayer. So she doesn't necessarily need to do anything different to what she did in the last match in terms of transitioning. But I think she just needs to keep at it. And she can't... If I was Raducanu, I would not say, okay, you know what, I've been passed once, now I'm going to put it in the back. I'm going to put it in the back, put it in my pocket. I'm not going to try and come to the net again. Some people get very, very, I would say, well, I think their confidence just plummets if they get passed once, especially if they're a player that isn't used to coming to the net much. When they get passed once, it's like, okay, I'm not going to do it anymore. I think sometimes you've got to accept that if you're going to come to the net, you are going to get passed at times. But if you can more often than not win those exchanges at the net, then you're in a decent position. But you want to be around the 70%, 75% net points one at least, right? Raducanu's got good hands in the net. She's got good touch as well. I think she needs to utilize the drop shot at times, try and get Swiatek into uncomfortable positions in the forecourt, but it's got to be a good drop shot. She can't be, just hitting a drop shot and it sits up nicely for Swiatek. She's just going to put it away. She does need to try and transition when she can. When she's on the front foot, she's very good at being able to hit the into-out forehand or forehand down the line and then come to the net. Swiatek's backhand is very good. But what she was doing well, to be fair to Raducanu, is she was approaching a lefty's forehand. Now, she's going to be approaching a righty's backhand, but Swiatek's backhand is still very good. So she's still going to be pretty cautious, I would say, at times coming into the Swiatek backhand. But if I was her, I would be implementing it and just backing herself to hit that approach well enough that she's going to have an easier volley than maybe she'd expect. Similarly, I think she might mix it up and approach the forehand. That might be a mistake because Swiatek, I feel, has really good range on the forehand in terms of finding good angles, especially cross court. But she doesn't want to become one-dimensional and just approach the backhand as well. There could be an element of serve volleying. I know she can serve volley at times. I don't know if she's going to do that against Swiatek because her returns tend to be very well struck, very flat. I don't know whether she'll have time to come in behind the serve. But that's something to definitely utilize. I think she doesn't want to get caught in the backhand-to-backhand exchanges. Swiatek's backhand is super solid and very good for the most part. I think the backhand-to-backhand is something that Raducanu needs to try and stay away from as much as possible, in my opinion. And if she does get caught into that, she probably needs to try and go line first and get out of that rhythm. Yes, it goes into Swiatek's forehand, which is arguably her strength, and she can then go cross-court and open up the court, but I think it's better than getting stuck in that. Also, I think she needs to try and open up on the forehand. Now, something that Andreescu did really well against Swiatek was hit the into-out forehand beautifully and also made Swiatek, scramble on the backhand side. Now, no one tends to want to defend on the backhand side, and no one is particularly excellent at defending on their backhand side. There's not many players. And I think with the into-out forehand, the angle, and how low you can hit it over the net as well, and how well struck it can be, I think she struggles to hit the backhand kind of at ankle height. And it's an awkward one, right? Especially on the stretch. So I think Raducanu needs to flatten out the forehand, especially on the into-out, and try and get similar situations to what Andreescu got against Swiatek, where she was winning points like that. She was trying to hit the ball early on the forehand and use her footwork. Raducanu's got very good footwork as well. So if she can open up on that forehand side, then she'll have some decent success, I would imagine. But yeah, she needs to be creative. So that means the into-out forehand, as I said, she needs to hit a couple of drop shots as well, chuck it in there at the right moments. She's got a pretty good drop shot and also transition well to the net as well in the right moments again. So it's about picking and choosing her moments, but she needs to vary it up. I'm sure she'll also slice at times. She does like the forehand slice in some positions, and also tends to backhand slice as well at times. I think she does need to mix up the pace. If she's one paced, Swiatek will get into rhythm and destroy her. In all honesty, I think if they're both going toe to toe from the back of the court, most likely Swiatek is going to come out on top. So she needs to slice and dice a bit as well. On top of also, Andreescu kind of moonpulled her at times, and it was more variation once every 3-4 ground strokes. I actually don't mind that, to be honest, and it's almost like a lob. If Raducanu is going to do that, it could work, and I think she needs to do it, though, and execute it well. It needs to be deep into court. If it's not, it sits up, and and Swiatek just tends to get on top of it and crunch it, and then you're in real trouble. So she needs to look at that. And also, it can be a good tactic to utilize if you want to get back into a good defensive position on court as well, because if you're being rushed constantly, if you hit flatter and flatter and flatter, you're giving yourself less opportunity to actually be in a good position with your feet. So sometimes thinking that lob is not a bad option. So that will be interesting to see. Swiatek, by the way, it'll be intriguing to see if she does come to the net. She tried to come to the net more against Andreescu, and she has been doing it for the past 6 months. It's something she's clearly trying to add to her game. I would say her hands at the net are not as natural as Raducanu's, but it's something she's working on. Her approach shots, though, are generally pretty good. It's just her hands at the net can be a little bit iffy at times. Raducanu needs to try and take advantage of those moments, try and pass her, lob her. Like, these are opportunities where she's probably not going to be in her comfort zone. So that's why when I talk about drop shot, slicing, dicing, it might drag Swiatek forward to the forecourt into maybe territory she doesn't quite feel as much at home at. So I think angles are important, a variation, net play for Raducanu. For Swiatek, really, it's in her hands, in all honesty. If she serves well, she's striking the ball well. If she plays better than she did against Andreescu yesterday, it's hard to see her not winning. And I think generally it's pretty hard to see her not winning anyway, because she didn't play that well yesterday and she still beat Andreescu in straight sets, who was playing arguably her best level of tennis since 2019, in my opinion. So it's going to be a real tough task for Emma Raducanu, but hopefully an exciting and competitive match. Let me know your thoughts. Who do you think is going to win? I'm going to go for Swiatek. Oh, it's a tough one. Now, I normally say when Swiatek wins the first set, she doesn't tend to lose. Now, she doesn't tend to get taken to 3 sets even. She just always wins in straight sets. She almost got taken to 3 yesterday against Andreescu. I can't see her playing that level again, though. I'll say Raducanu will take the first set, so I'll say Swiatek in 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a straight set victory, honestly, for Swiatek. I am finding it hard to see how Raducanu wins. I think she's going to have to play her best tennis, and probably Swiatek's going to have to play similar to what she played like yesterday for that to happen, but we'll see. Right, thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you on the next video.